I still remember the exact moment my world cracked. It wasn't loud. It didn't come with screaming or crying. It came with a text message, 3 words long, from my cousin Mia. "We need to talk." I was sitting in my kitchen on a Tuesday evening, stirring a pot of spaghetti that I would end up throwing away. My husband, Derek, was working late again, something that had become more common over the past 6 months. I didn't think much of it. I trusted him. We had been together for 9 years, married for 5. We owned a house with a white picket fence, a dog named Biscuit, and a shared dream of starting a family. I thought we were solid. I thought we were the couple that everyone else envied. Mia was my cousin, but she was closer to me than any sister. We grew up 2 houses apart in a small town in Ohio. Our mothers are sisters, and we were born 3 months apart. We shared clothes, secrets, and a birthday party every year until we turned 16. When I introduced her to Derek at a family barbecue 7 years ago, she hugged him like she already knew him. She became part of our inner circle. Sunday dinners, holidays, even a joint vacation to the Outer Banks. She was my person. So when her text came, I didn't panic. I assumed she was having relationship trouble, or maybe she was stressed about work. I called her instead of texting back. She didn't answer. I tried twice more. Then my phone buzzed with another message. "It's about Derek." I remember the way my hand froze over the stove. The spaghetti sauce started to bubble and splatter. I turned off the burner, leaned against the counter, and read those 3 words again. "It's about Derek." She didn't come out and say it right away. She made me come to her apartment an hour later. When I walked in, she was sitting on her couch, knees pulled to her chest, her face pale and puffy. I knew before she spoke. I knew because she couldn't look at me. I knew because her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. A gesture so small but so devastatingly clear. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. And then the words tumbled out. How it had started a year ago, after a fight Derek and I had about money. She said he came to her apartment to vent. One thing led to another, and then it became a pattern. Secret meetings, lies, a web so tangled that she said she felt like she was drowning. And then 2 months before that text, she found out she was pregnant. "It was an accident," she kept saying. "We never meant for this to happen." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat on the edge of her coffee table, facing her, and I asked one question. "Does he know?" She nodded. "He's been paying for my prenatal visits. He asked me not to tell you." That was the knife. Not the affair, though that gutted me. Not the pregnancy, though that would later become a wound that refused to heal. It was the fact that they had been walking around together, planning behind my back, while I made his lunches and folded his laundry, and told myself that our marriage was worth fighting for. I stood up. I walked out of her apartment without another word. She called after me, but I didn't turn around. I didn't confront Derek that night. I went home, let Biscuit out, and sat in the dark living room until he walked in at 11:30 p.m. smelling like the cheap cologne he only wore when he was going out with the guys. He kissed my forehead, mumbled something about a late meeting, and went to shower. I listened to the water run, and I felt something in my chest go cold and hard. Over the next 2 weeks, I did something I never thought I was capable of. I played the part. I smiled. I made dinner. I asked about his day. And while he slept, I gathered evidence. Screenshots of his phone when he left it on the nightstand. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals and payments to a clinic I didn't recognize. A calendar in his work bag with M appointment, scribbled on 3 separate dates. I wasn't going to be the woman who got blindsided and disappeared quietly. If my world was going to burn, I was going to light the match. I also did something else. I reached out to a divorce attorney. A fierce woman named Diane who listened to everything, asked only a few questions, and then said something I will never forget. "You don't have to decide what you want to do today. But when you do decide, I want you to know that the law is on your side. And so am I." I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell our mutual friends. I let the secret sit in my chest like a stone, and I waited. I waited for the moment I knew was coming, the baby shower. Mia's mother, my aunt, announced it on Facebook 3 weeks after I found out. It was going to be at a rented hall in our hometown, a celebration of new beginnings. The invitation came to my house, addressed to me and Derek. He looked at it over breakfast and said, with a perfectly straight face, "We should go. It would mean a lot to her." I said, "Of course. We wouldn't miss it." Over the next month, I built my armor. I went to therapy twice a week. I let myself cry in the car, in the shower, in the grocery store aisle when a baby smiled at me. I let myself feel the rage, the kind that makes your hands shake and your vision go white, and then I channeled it into preparation. I worked with Diane to separate our finances. I moved half of our joint savings into an account Derek didn't know about. I quietly changed the beneficiary on my life insurance and retirement accounts. I took photos of the evidence, printed copies, and stored them in a safety deposit box. And I rehearsed what I would say, not to Derek, not to Mia, but to the 60 people who would be gathered in that hall, eating finger sandwiches and cooing over tiny onesies. I knew what I was about to do would be called cruel. I knew people would say I should have handled it privately, with dignity, that revenge was beneath me. But I also knew something else. I had spent 9 years being the quiet, supportive wife who smoothed over every conflict, who forgave without being asked, who made herself small so the people she loved could feel big. I was done being small. The hall was decorated in mint green and gold, with paper lanterns hanging from the ceiling, and a table piled with gifts wrapped in pastel paper. Mia stood near the entrance, cradling her small bump, wearing a flowing dress that made her look like a Renaissance painting. When she saw me walk in, alone, her face flickered with something between relief and terror. "Where's Derek?" she asked, her voice too high. "He's coming later," I said. "He had to pick up something." She didn't ask what. She hugged me, and I let her. I felt her stomach press against mine, and I felt nothing but ice. I found a seat near the back, where I could see everything. Aunt Linda was buzzing around with a clipboard, making sure the food was hot and the games were ready. My own mother gave me a confused look when she saw me sitting by myself, but I waved her off with a smile. I wanted no one to suspect anything, not yet. The shower proceeded like any other. There was a guessing game for the baby's weight, a don't say baby game with clothespins, and a long tedious moment where everyone watched Mia open gifts. She smiled at each one, held up the tiny outfits and blankets, and thanked people with a sweetness that made my stomach turn. I watched Derek's mother hand her a silver rattle. I watched my aunt dab tears from her eyes. I watched Mia's husband, a man named Paul who worked in construction and had no idea he was raising another man's child, laugh with his buddies near the drink table. Paul was a good guy. He and Mia had been married for 3 years. They were the kind of couple that posted corny anniversary photos on Instagram and called each other babe in every sentence. When I found out about Derek and Mia, one of the first thoughts that crashed through my head was, what about Paul? He deserved to know. They all deserved to know. After the gifts, after the cake was cut and the champagne, non-alcoholic of course, was poured, Aunt Linda tapped a fork against her glass and asked for everyone's attention. She was going to make a toast. "I just want to say," she began, her voice trembling with joy, "how proud I am of my beautiful daughter, Mia. She has always been a light in our family, and now she's bringing a new little light into this world. We are so blessed." People raised their glasses. I raised mine too, but I didn't drink. Then Aunt Linda added, "And I want to thank all of you for being here to support her, especially her wonderful husband, Paul, and her cousin, my niece, Natalie, who has been like a sister to her since they were babies. Family is everything." She looked at me with a warm smile. The room was quiet, waiting for the toast to finish. I set my glass down on the table in front of me, and I stood up. I didn't plan to stand. My body moved before my brain could stop it. All the rehearsed words I had practiced for weeks vanished, replaced by something raw and unscripted. I felt 60 pairs of eyes land on me. Mia's smile faltered. Derek's mother, who had been sitting 2 tables away, frowned. "Actually," I said, my voice clear and steady, "I have something I'd like to share." Aunt Linda lowered her glass. "Natalie, honey, let's do the toast first and then." "No," I said. "I think this should come before the toast." I walked toward the center of the room, where Mia was standing with her hand still resting on her belly. I could see her pulse beating in her throat. Derek's chair, still empty, was near the front. He had texted me 20 minutes earlier saying he was running late. Good. I wanted him to walk into the middle of it. I've been coming to family events for 32 years. I began, looking out at the faces I had known my whole life. I've celebrated birthdays, weddings, anniversaries. I've kept secrets. I've smiled when I was dying inside. But I can't do that today. Mia's breathing quickened. I saw her look toward the door, searching for Derek. This baby shower is supposed to be about new life and new beginnings, I continued. And I agree, there is a new life coming. But I think everyone here deserves to know the full story behind that new life. A murmur rippled through the room. My mother stood up, her face pale. Natalie, what are you doing? I turned to her. I'm telling the truth, Mom. Something I should have done weeks ago. Then I faced the room again. I pointed at Mia. My cousin is pregnant, I said. And the father of her baby is my husband. For a moment, there was absolute silence. No one breathed. I watched the words land on each person like a stone dropped into still water. Aunt Linda's face went from confusion to horror. Paul, sweet, oblivious Paul, stopped mid-laugh, his glass frozen halfway to his lips. What? He said. The word came out barely a whisper. Mia made a sound, a small, strangled noise, and covered her mouth with both hands. Her eyes were wide, darting around the room like a trapped animal. I have proof, I said, my voice never wavering. Text messages, bank statements, appointment records. I have everything. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope I had been carrying for weeks. I didn't open it, I just held it up so everyone could see. I'm not here to humiliate anyone, I said. I'm here because I refuse to sit quietly while my husband and my cousin lie to everyone I love. I refuse to watch Paul raise a child that isn't his without knowing the truth. And I refuse to pretend that this baby shower is a celebration of family, when the people standing at the center of it have been stabbing me in the back for over a year. The silence broke into chaos. Aunt Linda started screaming at Mia, demanding to know if it was true. Paul dropped his glass. It shattered on the floor, spraying champagne across the white tablecloth. My mother rushed toward me, grabbing my arm, saying something I couldn't hear over the noise. And then Derek walked in. He had a gift bag in one hand, a stupid grin on his face that told me he thought he was just late to a party. He saw the commotion, saw me standing in the center of the room with the envelope raised, saw Mia's face twisted in tears. The grin evaporated. He dropped the gift bag. What's going on? He said. His voice cracked. I turned to him. I'm telling everyone, Derek. I'm telling them that you've been sleeping with my cousin for a year, that you got her pregnant, that you've been paying for her doctor's appointments with our money. I'm telling them everything. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time in our entire marriage, he had nothing to say. No excuse. No charm. No lie ready. I looked back at the room. Paul was standing now, his face red, his fists clenched. He was staring at Derek with an expression that promised violence. Mia had crumpled into a chair, sobbing. Aunt Linda was on her phone, probably calling my father. The rest of the guests were frozen, some with phones out, recording the scene that would later be shared and reshared across our small town's social media. I didn't stay to watch the fallout. I had said what I came to say. I walked to the front table, took the envelope, and handed it to Paul. You deserve to see this, I said quietly. He took it with shaking hands. Then I walked out the door, into the cool afternoon air, and I didn't look back. The next few weeks were a storm. Derek moved out of the house within 3 days. My divorce was finalized 6 months later, faster than anyone expected. Thanks to the mountain of evidence I had given Diane, I got the house, the car, and full custody of Biscuit. Derek's mother called me to apologize, her voice breaking. I accepted her apology, but I haven't seen her since. Mia and Paul divorced. It was messy and public. Paul moved to another state, and I don't blame him. Mia had the baby, a boy she named Eli, and she is raising him alone. I don't know what her life looks like now. We don't speak. I don't know if we ever will. The family, as you can imagine, splintered. Some people took my side. Others said I should have handled it privately, that what I did at the shower was cruel and unnecessary. My aunt didn't speak to me for a year. My mother told me I was brave, But she also said she wished I had told her first. I understand that. But I also know that if I had told her first, she would have tried to stop me. She would have asked me to think about the family reputation, about the children, about the right way to do things. And I was done doing things the right way for people who had treated me like an afterthought. I think about that day often. I think about the look on Derek's face when he walked in. I think about the sound of Paul's glass shattering. I think about my aunt's screams, the whispers, the phones raised in the air like cameras at a press conference. And I don't regret it. Not because I wanted revenge, though I won't pretend I didn't. Not because I wanted to watch Mia suffer, though a part of me, the wounded part, did. I did it because I refused to let them write the story. For a year, they had been living a secret life, crafting their own narrative where I was the oblivious wife and they were the victims of circumstance. At the baby shower, they were about to cement that narrative in front of everyone we knew. They would have smiled, accepted gifts, and let Paul believe the child was his. And I would have been erased. I chose not to be erased. I chose to tell the truth, in front of witnesses, with evidence in my hands. I chose to let the light hit every dark corner they had been hiding in. Was it theatrical? Yes. Was it painful for everyone involved? Absolutely. But sometimes, when you have been silenced for so long, the only way to be heard is to shout. It has been 2 years since that day. I live in the same house, but I've redecorated. There are no more photos of Derek on the walls. I travel now, places I always wanted to go but never did because he didn't like flying. I've made new friends, people who know me as Natalie, not as Derek's wife, or the woman who exposed her cousin at a baby shower. I still get messages sometimes. From distant relatives who want to know the real story. From strangers who saw the video that was recorded that day. It went viral in our town, and then beyond. Most of them tell me I was brave. A few tell me I was cruel. I don't read them anymore. I've started dating again slowly. I'm seeing a man named Alex who builds furniture and brings me coffee in bed. He knows my story. He doesn't flinch when I talk about it. He says he admires my strength. I tell him it wasn't strength. It was survival. He says maybe they're the same thing. As for Mia, I saw her once, about 6 months ago, at a gas station outside of town. She was buckling Eli into a car seat. He has Derek's eyes. That same shade of green the first fell in love with 9 years ago. She saw me, and for a moment we just stood there, the air between us thick with everything that had been said and everything that hadn't. She started to speak, but I shook my head. Not today, I said. She nodded, got into her car, and drove away. I don't know if we'll ever have a conversation that heals anything. Maybe we won't. Maybe some wounds are too deep to close. But I've learned something in the 2 years since that baby shower. You can forgive without reconciling. You can move on without forgetting. And you can love yourself enough to walk away from people who treated your trust like a doormat. I still think about that day. I still feel the cold clarity of standing in front of 60 people and telling the truth. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. And it was the most necessary. If you are reading this and you are carrying a secret that is eating you alive, if you are waiting for the right time, or the right way to speak your truth, I want you to know something. There will never be a perfect moment. There will always be people who tell you to be quiet, to protect the family, to take the high road. But the high road is sometimes just another way of saying make yourself small so others can stay comfortable. You don't have to make a scene at a baby shower. You don't have to do what I did. But you do have to find your voice. You do have to honor the truth inside you. Because staying silent won't protect you. It will only teach the people who hurt you that they can keep doing it. I chose to speak. I chose to let my voice be loud, and messy, and unforgettable. And I would do it again. Every single time.